We've just exchanged text messages. He says he's happy to speak, so I'm going to give him a call now. Let's see if this goes through. It's ringing. Hi, Barkat. So as I mentioned, I'm a journalist at Vice News, and we're currently in Somaliland. And we're working on a report about frankincense, and we're just wondering whether you'd be able to speak to us about that.
Yeah, no problem. Do you want to do it now?
Tomorrow would be a good time for us.
Yeah.
He's agreed to speak to us. We're going to arrange that interview for tomorrow. He seemed pretty up for it. And we'll put to him all the allegations that we've heard since we arrived here and see what he said.
Starts banging on the door. And that gave me an opportunity to, because he jumped up and then got off me, and I jumped up.
I'm so sorry you went through that. You say assaulted, raped. What went through your mind afterwards? Do you remember your thoughts?
That I wanted to just get out of there was the most pressing thing for me, that I was fixated on getting out of Somalia. I never thought anything could be done for me. It was a gray area. Somaliland's not a recognized country. I didn't report it to a police officer and embassy. There was no rape kit. There's no police investigation. I'm an independent contractor. So I really didn't think anything.
Let me defend myself. I do not have a card here. I do not have a card here.
I haven't even said. I haven't even said what we allege. What's going on? What's going on? No. There's a few questions I have. I have a few questions. Why has this just happened now? This is all a bit suspicious. Less than 15 minutes into our sit-down, our interview was cut short. A government official said we didn't have permission to film, but the morning after the interview, we left Somaliland.
haddaba barkad jibriil xasan oo ah ganacsadaha leh sharikadda Asli Maydi ayaa waxa kadib saxaafadda uu kula hadlay magaalada Hargeysa waxaana uu sheegay dadkaasi ajaanibka ah ee wareystay inaanay ahayn sida uu moodayay isagoo laamaha ammaankana uu sheegay arrintaasi in baaritaan lagu sameeyo.
On social media, he accused us of physically threatening him and broadcast his footage of the interview on Somaliland TV.
way barkhadow dhawaan wareysi baad qola cadaan ku guleeyay Hargeysa adigu sirdoon baad ka sheegtay sidee baad wareysi u siisay dadaanad garanayn meel ay ka shaqeeyaan iyo meel ay ka soo jeedaan
my one garanaya halkii ka shaqeynay lagu afku ila soo xiriiray
sidee sirdoon ku noqdeen
waxay ku noqdeen hawshii u socdeen baan ugu weeray wixii ii sheegteen sirdoonna maan ku sheegin ma waxa lagu sheegay Soomaaliga assassination squad baladaha waa dadka dilay loo diro.
You're stressed out, you can't sleep, you're suffering from headaches, well, there may be an oil for that.
If you want to use the king of essential oils, frankincense is your best bet.
As all of you know, when we go in to a place like Somalia or like Somaliland, we want to give back. We always do this, right?
I realized that we had a really serious problem with unsustainable practices.
We were ethical. We try our best, you know. Sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it works.
The essential oils business in the US is absolutely massive. And the focus very often with the businesses in the United States is how it's taken and bought from a sustainable supply chain.
All this chaos is going on, and that it seems to be pretty well known that this is a bad situation, and yet it just continues.
We're in the autonomous region of Somaliland, which claimed independence from Somalia in 1991, but so far hasn't been recognized by the United Nations. One of the biggest industries here is frankincense from these trees. But while CEOs in America reap the rewards of the multi-billion-dollar essential oils industry, harvesters here accuse some international buyers of exploitation and lies. So how long have you been a harvester? Generations. They make it look so easy. For more than 5,000 years, frankincense has been harvested the same way. Scraped from the trunks of boswellia trees before it's sold as incense or distilled into essential oil. I can actually see the resin coming out of it now, the little white droplets. Frankincense is an ancient botanical used by Egyptians in cosmetics and embalming. It plays a role in the biblical story of Jesus. Traditional Chinese and Indian medicine use it as an antibiotic and anti-inflammatory. Historically, the harvest season in Somaliland was 3 to 5 months. Now, the $4.5 trillion wellness industry is driving people to collect resin all year round, putting the trees at risk of being overtapped.
markay gaadho dhowr kiilooyo badan oo gaadho dhowr 500 1500 ayaa leebkeediya.
How many times are you allowed to tap a tree like that?
geedkan waxa lagu dhifan karaa calaamada waa loo dhimi karaa hadii calaamadaad ku badiso geedkan waxyaalo waa ku iman kartaa.
Can you explain to people who might not understand this just how important frankincense is to you and to the communities in Somaliland?
ha geedkan waa geed macna weyn leh nolosha dhaqaale ma jirin amarkii laga shaqeeyaa yar waxa ma jirin.
Frankincense is Somaliland's second largest export behind livestock. The region has managed to maintain relative peace since claiming independence, making it an attractive destination for companies like Doterra International.
The dream for us at Doterra is to have an essential oil in every home.
Doterra is one of the biggest essential oil companies in the world, with more than $2 billion in sales last year. They say they get their frankincense from Oman, Ethiopia, and Somaliland.
Hey guys, I wanted to come on here and talk about the king of oils, frankincense.
A must-have.
This brand, Doterra.
Founded in 2008, the multi-level marketing company, or MLM, uses people called wellness advocates to recruit more people to sell essential oils.
We chose to be a person-to-person model because we knew that this would empower people to step into their full potential and truly make the world a better place.
It takes about half a pound of resin to make enough pure oil to fill a 15-milliliter vial, which doTERRA sells for $100. Harvesters sell their resin for up to $3 a pound. They used to go through local buyers, but now with corporations driving demand, an industry of middlemen suppliers has emerged, creating a blind spot for companies as to how business gets done on the ground. The harvesting communities we spoke to say they're being tricked and not fairly paid. They blame doTERRA supplier Asli Maydi, a local company that exports frankincense all over the world. When was the first time you did business with Asli Maydi? And how much more was it to what you were previously charging?
lacagtii markii dambe xayal la qabay wixii aan waxayga ku helana waa ku qaadanay lacag markaan weynay waxaan ku kala qaadanay raashin.
Did you agree to be paid back in food?
waxaan ka maqnaa waxba weyno waxaan ka aaminsanahay inuu baamad khiyaamo galay annaka yeelahayba ka galay.
Abdullahi Awad is featured as a harvester for Doterra in a video about their frankincense sourcing from 2017. I'm just going to show you the video, actually. So,
we had to give them that seed of hope, and it's been amazing to see the change that has happened in just a few years.
They say that harvesters like yourself have been given hope by Doterra and that they have changed things here for the better. What do you think of that? Doterra has made corporate social responsibility a major part of its public image.
We are interested in having the highest quality essential oils that you can have, but in the process, we're also very interested in doing good in the world.
In 2010, Doterra started Healing Hands, a charitable foundation that invests in developing communities where Doterra sources their essential oils.
As all of you know, when we go in to a place like Somalia or like Somaliland, we want to give back. We always do this, right?
Sanag Specialty Hospital, built in 2021 in partnership with their sourcing partner Asli Maydi, is one example of Doterra trying to give back.
In our first month, we saw 2,000 patients there. Everything you can imagine. And just many miracles have already happened, have already taken place.
They also claim to have built 2 boarding schools in the region.
We built the first school in Udawain in Somaliland in 2015. The second school we built in Childebert in the next year in 2016.
Doterra still boasts that it's built a boarding school in a remote village called El-Dibr, but the locals there say there's no such thing, so we're currently on a 13-hour drive to reach this small community to find out the truth. El-Dibr is made up of just 50 families, all from the same clan, each one financially reliant on the frankincense trade. Salam. Faisal Abukar Hassan is the village chief. With the support of clan elders, he oversees every aspect of life, from helping solve disputes to making sure his people can access healthcare and education. So this is El-Dibr. It's very small.
It's very small village here.
So is there anywhere that a school could be hidden here that we wouldn't know there's a school?
You can go up at this small hill and you can look around. There is no hidden school.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. I have a question for you all. Is there a boarding school here in El-Dibr?
No.
Do you know that there is an American company that says that it's funded a boarding school here? Have you heard about that?
waxaanu ka maqalay idaacadahaasaan ka maqalay isagoo beena ugu tawala waxaasaanu ka maqalay dhulka
miidiyuun baanu ka maqalay
waxaanu ka maqalay markaasaanu shir jiraayadana la qabanay oo nidhi ma jiro
قالنا المادة عربي هاي اللغة العربية معنا يمكن ووقت وكذا خبر نقول واقعين حنا نسوي واحد
So this is the main school for the village?
Yeah, this is the main school for El-Dibr, which there are 2 classes we built in 2006, and this is the children. This is the only main school in El-Dibr.
In 2016, Faisal Hassan learned Doterra was putting the El-Dibr boarding school in a promotional video. He contacted the company because the school hadn't been built and he was concerned their money had been stolen. Doterra responded saying, quote, "Our staff has personally visited both of these schools constructed in Urwain, so we're well aware of their existence and the prudent use of resources for their construction." End quote.
Urwain is 320 miles from El Dibr. While there's no reason to believe the schools there were not built, Doterra never acknowledged El Dibr and did not respond to our specific question about the missing school. Doterra's supplier Asli Maydi started buying resin from the families in El Dibr around 8 years ago. Harvesters like Adan Mira Ahmed say middlemen for Asli Maydi promised him a large payout if they stopped selling to other suppliers. Then, 2 years later, the company stopped doing business in the village, saying the resin was low quality.
What impact did that have when they decided to stop purchasing from you? You seem very angry about it. What do you think of the American company that uses Asli Maydi to purchase frankincense?
Faisal Hassan says Asli Maydi is determined to monopolise the frankincense trade in Somaliland by manipulating the market. The chief blames one man for this, Asli Maydi's owner, Barkat Hassan.
marka hadduu maqlo ninkani dad baa meesha yimi cid agencies oo isaga ka mid ah oo wakiilo u abu soo diraya 8 iyo 7 kiiloogiiba siiya buu odhanaya si uu dadka macaamiisha ah uu yiraahdo anugu baa idin siinaya Asli Maydi beeyada ka iibsada aadinina dadka localka iyo gobolada aadinina buu odhanaya ana idin ka iibinaya.
So you're basically saying in order for regular trade to resume here, Barkat Hassan is a problem and he needs to be taken out of the industry.
waxaan taa kula talin lahaa dawladdu inay ninka ka qaado liisanka dhoofinta sababtoo ah danta dadka ku jirta.
Harvesters, villagers, clan elders and others here say Hassan is trying to control the frankincense supply through intimidation. He's also interfered with other journalists trying to report on this frankincense trade in Somaliland. It took only 2 days in El Dibr before someone connected to Hassan contacted our local team, demanding information about this story.
Okay. Just had to come to my hotel room and lock the door. The rest of the team have done the same thing as a precautionary measure because we understand that there is a man who's in the reception downstairs who is asking to speak to us in order to ask us questions. We do know that he was sent by Barkat Hassan, and we also know that Barkat Hassan is very angry that we are questioning his practices. And so we are avoiding whoever it is that's downstairs, and we're going to just try and get out of this town. ISIS controls parts of the Golis Mountains, which you can see around us, and their influence extends right into cities, towns and businesses.
Next to Somaliland is Puntland, a porous and disputed region in Somalia. Bosaso is its port city and where frankincense from the mountains is transported to be sorted. The governments of Somaliland and Puntland, non-governmental organisations and traders all told Vice News that the majority of resin exported from the region actually comes from here.
Doterra says they started sourcing from Puntland and later shifted to Somaliland, but they didn't respond to our questions about whether they still source from here. We spoke with traders who say Asli Maydi, Doterra's supplier, has bought from Puntland. But Asli Maydi denies this, saying the disputed nature of the region means defined borders change frequently. Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah. Wow, it smells so good. That is resin straight off the tree. Look at that.
Chief Farah Yusuf Ahmed has been a frankincense trader since 1998.
meeshii gabdhuhu kaga shaqaynayeen oo laga kala gurayay oo maxaan ku sheegay lagu safaynayay oo la kala saarayay oo loo kala saarayay shooto iyo maxaan ku sheegay casaan iyo miro.
Should we go inside? Can I sit with you? Thank you, shukran. What they're doing is flipping the resin, and when they do that, it separates all these little bits that you then throw out. And these women are doing this all day, 50 kilos in one day. Wow.
beeyada Somaliland laga raro boqolkiiba 95 waxay ka baxdaa Puntland. annagaana nala ka gadaa annagaana u soo geynaa.
Why do you export so much to Somaliland?
Somaliland ee dalabka hadba meeshii aan u helno markaas baan ku khasbanahay inaan u iib geysano. haddii loo baahdo 500,000 kiilo 600,000 kiilo waa ka heli karnaa boosaaso laakiin waxay ku xiran tahay suuqa aan helno.
Ahmed sold to Asli Maydi on and off for years. He was part of a lawsuit alleging the company and its owner, Hinda-Hassan, didn't pay harvesters for their product in 2020.
Did he ever put a contract in front of you and ask you to sign a document that showed how much he was going to pay you and how much you were going to sell to him?
qaabka uu shaqeeyo waa ii soo rar iyo maxaan kuu sheegaa xisaabtoo sare joog lagu kala goosto wax dokumenti oo sameeyona intaan ka ogahay male.
Is that a normal way of doing business here in Puntland?
ma dadka de macaamilka wanaagsan iyo waa in de dokumenti la kala qortaa nidaam la sameeyaa.
Ultimately, Hassan had to repay his debts to Ahmed, but other traders in Puntland say Hassan still hasn't paid them and have spoken out against him to local media.
halkan munaasabadan waxa weeye munaasabad ay sabab u tahay dad shacab ah oo ka cabanaya hanti laga dhacay oo ganacsade ah shirkadda beeyada ee Asli.
ninkaasu wuxuu la tegay hanti fara badan oo gaaraysa malaayiin dollar gaaraysa.
Wherever you go, you can find people that are willing to speak out against Hinda-Hassan and Asli Maydi, but we're hearing that some people in the supply chain are having to pay taxes on some of their profits to ISIS, and getting them to speak on camera has been nearly impossible.
In Puntland, all businesses have to factor in both official taxes and payouts to insurgent groups like Al-Shabaab and ISIS. Somali officials have estimated that ISIS makes at least $72,000 a month here. It's too dangerous to openly talk about these kind of kickbacks. But one frankincense trader agreed to speak with us if we didn't reveal their identity.
Can you explain the relationship between businessmen and ISIS in Puntland?
في الأدوار ما كنا حيا حق نعسي حق السكوات كقالان جنعسته أو قاب يوي روان هبين نقطو.
Every single businessman has to do this without question. What if you say, no, I don't want to pay you any tax on my profit, and you refuse? What would happen? Has that ever happened before?
laba saac qiyaastii waxa lagu soo tuuray bawgacmeed bakhaar ay leedahay shirkadda Al-Najax oo lagu iibiyo qalabka dhismaha.
People here believe ISIS is responsible for attacks like this, targeting businesses that don't pay them.
If there was somebody who worked in the frankincense trade here in Puntland, but they said, no, I don't pay any tax to ISIS, I don't pay them anything, what would you say about that? Can you explain to people why it's such a dangerous thing to talk openly about this tax?
While it's generally understood that this kind of extortion is the price of doing business in Puntland, there's no evidence that Asli Maydi has paid money directly to ISIS. After hearing its owner's name, Hinda-Hassan, frequently alongside allegations of exploiting harvesters, we wanted to hear from him.
We've just exchanged text messages. He says he's happy to speak, so I'm going to give him a call now. Let's see if this goes through. It's ringing. Hi, Barkat. So as I mentioned, I'm a journalist at Vice News, and we're currently in Somaliland. And we're working on a report about frankincense, and we're just wondering whether you'd be able to speak to us about that.
Yeah, no problem. Do you want to do it now?
Tomorrow would be a good time for us.
Yeah.
He's agreed to speak to us. We're going to arrange that interview for tomorrow. He seemed pretty up for it. And we'll put to him all the allegations that we've heard since we arrived here and see what he says. Yeah, he's outside.
All right, Mike. I need a mic, Mike.
We're over. Let him walk in first.
I'm only right.
Hi.
Bonjour, ça va?
Hello. I did. I'm good.
I'm not very photogenic, by the way, you know. What camera there is with that way?
What's the camera crew doing?
I want to know if there's anything you guys. Don't worry about it. It's not gonna.
Oh, I'm not. I'm just wondering.
Don't worry about it.
Hinda-Hassan insisted on bringing his own camera crew. Once both teams were set up, he was ready to begin.
So we're doing our own thing. Let's get rolling, mate. I'm a bit of a rush.
You're in a rush?
I've got things to do, darling.
Yeah, of course you are.
You know? I'm good. Can we just get on with it, mate? Come on.
You good?
Everybody happy? We're good.
Let's rock and roll.
If you could introduce yourself and what job you do, that would be great.
My name is Hinda-Hassan, proprietor of Asli Maydi, you know.
Who are you selling to internationally, and how much do you sell?
Well, I don't want to divulge because there's an NDA there. So it's the big buys, let's put it that way.
The essential oils business in the US is absolutely massive. And the focus very often with the businesses in the United States is how it's taken and bought from a sustainable supply chain. And is that something that you are made aware of when you're working with international buyers?
Yes, we're ethical. We try our best, you know. Sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it works.
When doesn't it work?
When you have unintelligent people around, you know, and not understand how things work.
There were individuals that we spoke to that said that when they first did business with you, that Asli Maydi came in, paid deposits, gaining their trust, but then didn't follow through on the full payments and instead paid using food and not money.
I mean, the Somaliland has a legal justice system. Why did they not go to and arrest me and take me to court or something like that? Can I ask you a question? Why did come to you? Who are you? Are you auditing me? Are you PricewaterhouseCoopers?
We're journalists. So we're journalists.
Well, you know what the journalists know. You know, fake news is the term of this. You know, this generation now. I mean, come on, Vice. Third rate. I'm not putting you down. I'm not. It's just my opinion.
Absolutely allowed your opinion.
I have not. Right.
And we spoke to multiple harvesters and in different regions and in different villages who said the same thing.
You could have paid them to say that. They
so
disappeared.
You're saying that you've never paid anyone with food instead of cash?
And let me explain something to you, how the trade works. These people are, how can I say, they complain a lot. You been to Aragabo?
Mm-hmm.
You seen the multi-million-dollar hospital there?
We were having problems in Aragabo because I think you had been contacting some people.
I'm sorry. Do not accuse me of something I have not done. You know, here's my phone. Try call somebody.
Okay,
I do not have SIM card.
Let's take it back to the question.
No.
Let's take it back to the
you
question.
accuse me of something. Let me defend myself. I do not have a card here. I do not have a card here.
I haven't even said. I haven't even said what we allege. What's going on? What's going on?
shirka jaraa'ida qabanaysa waa qeyr sharci mandate kama haystaan dadkan wasaaradda gobolka soo salaad bay tageen.
No. There's a few questions I have. I have a few questions. Why has this just happened now? This is all a bit suspicious.
Less than 15 minutes into our sit-down, our interview was cut short. A government official said we didn't have permission to film, but we did.
Said anything. I've asked barely 2 questions in here. I've not been able to put hardly anything to you. I'm pretty convinced that this was all set up to show that he was willing to talk to us, but that it was the government that was up. But we did. Said anything. I've asked barely 2 questions in here. I've not been able to put hardly anything to you. I'm pretty convinced that this was all set up to show that he was willing to talk to us, but that it was the government that was upset with the work that we're doing, and they're the ones that have stopped this. But this just shows how far he will go to try and stop journalists from digging into what's really happening here.
Barakat Hassan's intimidation continued after our interview. He filed a complaint against us with the police.
Based on what just happened and the situation that we find ourselves in, we are taking extreme precautions by duplicating these files into different formats on different drives and then going to try and sneak it out of the country.
The morning after the interview, we left Somaliland.
haddaba barkad jibriil xasan oo ah ganacsadaha leh sharikadda Asli Maydi ayaa waxaa kadib saxaafadda uu kula hadlay magaalada Hargeysa waxaana uu sheegay dadkaasi ajaanibka ah ee waraystay inaanay ahayn sida uu moodayay isagoo laamaha ammaankana uu sheegay arrintaasi in baaritaan lagu sameeyo.
On social media, he accused us of physically threatening him and broadcast his footage of the interview on Somaliland TV.
way barkhadow dhawaan waraysi baad qola cadaan ku guleeyay Hargeysa adigu sirdoon baad ka sheegtay sidee baad waraysi u siisay dadaanad garanayn meel ay ka shaqeeyaan iyo meel ay ka soo jeedaan
my one garanaya halkii ka shaqeynay lagu ku ila soo xiriiray
sidee sirdoon ku noqdeen
waxay ku noqdeen hawshii u socdeen ba noqon weeyay wixii ii sheegteen sirdoonna maan ku sheegin ma wax lagu sheego Soomaaliga assassination squad baladaha waa dadka dil loo diro.
We've gone from the intense Somaliland heat to the Vermont snow, and we're going to meet a woman called Anjanette DiCarlo, who is a frankincense expert, and she has more important, sensitive information that she's going to share with us.
Anybody in here know what an entheogen is? Well, geeking out on plant chemistry. So an entheogen is any substance that causes a psychedelic effect on the brain. That sounded more like speaking your language now. Frankincense is not quite that strong. But it does have an impact on the brain, on our TRVP3 pathway, which is a calming and warming sensation, opens up the brain for meditation. So it makes sense that it's burned in churches.
When she's not in the classroom, Dr. Anjanette DiCarlo is doing field research. Her work has been funded by major cosmetic and essential oil companies, including Doterra.
So this is like your favorite area?
It is, because I love to be around trees. Trees, that's how I got into frankincense, because it was about the trees for me, and studying the trees and what they can do and how they can grow with no soil and produce all this chemistry was so fascinating to me.
Dr. DiCarlo first visited Somaliland as a PhD student in 2010 to study if companies could create more ethical working conditions for communities.
And this is
that tree is completely
being bark stripped.
Yeah.
This is Mattermoge area, which has been for many years deep concern to me in terms of the overtapping and the pressures.
You cannot overharvest these trees.
When she returned to do more research in 2016, she was shocked at the changes in the supply chain. She's published numerous peer-reviewed papers on frankincense and the impact that increased demand has on the trees.
There were new companies that had shown up on the scene, and they seemed to be driving a lot of the demand. It was unclear exactly how much each company, each supplier was buying and then exporting to the international market, except for one who kept bragging about very large numbers.
Who was that?
Asli Maydi company, the CEO of that company, Mr. Hassan, was one of the central figures who was organizing part of our visits and trips to different communities.
The trees are not dying because of this amount of bark, that it's from the overharvesting here. The amount of wounds.
Over the next 2 years, Dr. DiCarlo started working closely with Hassan and admits she was initially charmed by him, even attracted to him, describing an emotionally charged relationship that was never acted on. She also says that he became increasingly manipulative and controlling and would avoid answering questions about his business practices.
I realized midstream that we had a really serious problem with unsustainable practices. A lot of times when I'd ask to see sustainable things or to see well-managed trees, it wouldn't happen. So that made me even more curious about what was going on. I was getting more assertive about asking questions directly to Mr. Hassan, and he really did not like that.
So you went from trusting him to having serious doubts about him. When did the relationship completely break down, and what happened?
I stayed close to him too long, and I got burned.
On one of her trips in 2018, DiCarlo says Hassan's driver asked her to bring $15,000 cash to this meeting with government officials, but she refused. There's no evidence that Doterra was involved in this request, and Hassan denies that he attempted to pay a bribe to government officials. Later that night, Hassan called DiCarlo and extended an unusual invite to her team to come to his house.
And so, this is going to get a little hard for me. We're hanging out, we're having tea, and he turns to me and he goes, "Hey, I want to show you some very unique frankincense. I want to show you something. Come here, let me just show you, it's over here." And he says, "Just down that last door." The door is propped open, and I go through the door, and I look down, and he pushes me through a second door, and he locks the door, and starts grabbing me, and I'm saying no. I'm saying, "What are you doing? What is happening? Get off me, stop it, no." And he pushed me pretty hard, and I fell on my knees, and he sexually assaulted me. And while it was happening, I just kept looking at this dresser full of perfume bottles. And I don't know why I kept fixating on the perfume bottles, but that's how I was surviving what was happening. And my colleague starts banging on the door. And that gave me an opportunity to, because he jumped up and then got off me, and I jumped up.
I'm so sorry you went through that. You say assaulted, raped. What went through your mind afterwards? Do you remember your thoughts?
That I wanted to just get out of there was the most pressing thing for me, that I was fixated on getting out of Somalia. I never thought anything could be done for me. It was a gray area. Somaliland's not a recognized country. I didn't report it to a police officer and embassy. There was no rape kit. There's no police investigation. I'm an independent contractor. So I really didn't think anything could be done for me.
Did you tell Doterra?
When I got back to the United States, I reported it to a company that I was working with.
And how did they respond?
Well, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know what their response was, but shortly after reporting it, I started receiving harassing texts from Mr. Hassan, saying, things like I'm a crazy bitch and I've accused him of rape.
So he knew that the company he was working for knew about what had happened. He knew that.
He knew somehow. Somebody told him that I had reported that he had assaulted me. And I still to this day do not know who told him that.
You've communicated with him since the rape?
Via text. Yeah. I had this drive to get him to admit what he had done to me. I tried a more nuanced approach by being kind of nice on text. I got him to admit that he had been naughty and that he was sorry. So he knows what he did. He knows what he did.
When you think about what happened to you, and when you think about the fact that Barkat Hassan is still out there and companies are still working with him, what does that feel like?
I mean, it makes me sick. I mean, whether it's treating communities unfairly. I mean, people come to me, people call me and say, this guy has never paid me for the resins. Can you do something about it? All this chaos is going on, and that it seems to be pretty well known that this is a bad situation, and yet it just continues.
DiCarlo showed her texts with Hassan to Vice News, and we spoke to her colleague who was there and corroborated her version of events. We reached out to Hassan, and he denies raping DiCarlo and claims they were in a consensual sexual relationship, which began in 2016 and lasted a number of years. He says that text messages between them point to their consensual relationship and insists that she consented to sex at his home in November 2018. He also says that DiCarlo is well aware of the process involved in reporting unwanted conduct to the Somaliland authorities. He denies that the text exchange stating he'd been, quote, naughty, end quote, related to DiCarlo's claim of rape. Rather, he says that he was apologizing for an argument they'd had over a planned trip to Ethiopia. He also denied allegations about his business practices, saying the frankincense trade in Somaliland is more sustainable than it's ever been in the past. Regarding payments, Hassan told Vice News that sometimes it isn't practical for local harvesters to receive full payment in cash, and that Asli Maydi delivers food, medicine and clothing, in addition to a monetary payment at a later stage, calling it common practice. Since our visit, Hassan posted on Facebook that he intends to sue the Somaliland government for allowing us to report in the region. He also posted a letter of support from Doterra dated March 8th, which says Barkat Hassan has, quote, exacting oversight of professional execution, end quote. The letter goes on to say that his company has, quote, earned our trust by proving that all funds have been used for their intended objectives, end quote. Doterra confirmed the letter's authenticity to Vice News.
We're at Doterra's headquarters in Utah. We've come a long way to get here because we've called and we've emailed continuously to try and get an on-camera interview. And so far, they've just refused to meet us. So we've come here to try and speak to them face to face and get some answers finally. So my name is Hinda-Hassan. I'm a journalist at Vice News. And I'm wondering if there's somebody that I can speak to about some allegations that have been made against Doterra's supplier in Somaliland.
If you guys just want to take this.
Thank you.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
I've been told to ask you to leave.
Oh, but I thought that we were going to get somebody from PR to speak to us. Is that not the case?
Like I said, I'm just going to ask you to leave, and I don't know any of the background behind it. They don't want you here.
Okay. I guess there's nothing we can do. So we've come in, security has come, and they've told us that we have to leave. So that's what we're going to do. After visiting Doterra's offices, we followed up with a detailed list of allegations, and they provided a statement that says, in part, Doterra works closely with our independent sourcing partners to create ethical and sustainable supply chains anchored in our sourcing guiding principles, and continues, we take any allegation of improper conduct seriously, and as a result are commencing an investigation which will include outside counsel. Hassan told Vice News that he stopped buying resin from Abdullahi Awad 3 years ago, in part due to lower demand. He disputes Awad's claim about non-payment and questions Awad's motivation for appearing on camera. There are people all over the world who buy essential oils made from the frankincense that you create. Can you explain just what impact this has had on you and your community?
dadka idinna baasha u baahan tihiin caalamku u baahan yahay annana u baahannahay inaannu ka ganacsano iyadoo bayuurkeedeenna laka qaato nalaka iibsado cidda geed kale iyo cidda iibsadaysa xidhiir ka dhexeeya in si nanaamsan oo runa naloo ka iibsado oon waxna lagu darin waxna lagu khaldin.
I'm Michael Learmonth, editor-in-chief of Vice News. Too often, traditional news outlets shy away from the real stories and experiences of those living through global conflicts. Not Vice News. Our reporters are on the ground, fearlessly covering the human stories that shape our world. You and millions of others can continue to read, watch, and listen to Vice News for free. But we hope you'll consider making a one-time or ongoing contribution of any size at vice.com/contribute. Every contribution, no matter how big or small, helps support the journalism Vice News brings to you every day. Thank you.